Hello and welcome to Bringing Education Home. I'm Herb.
And I'm Christina. And together we bring you experts and ideas to help grow healthy, happy, successful families that are both inside
and outside the box. If you like the show, be sure to follow Christina on Facebook.
And please leave us a like review on your favorite podcast platform.
Today, I have the pleasure of introducing Jennifer Edlund. Jennifer had stubbornly rejected homeschooling as an option. She thought it was child abuse. So when public and private schools did not create the environment she wanted for her kids, along with many other life circumstances, she swallowed her pride, humbled herself, and tried out the homeschool option. Terrified and worried about getting it right, she forged ahead, and the results were far better than she could have ever imagined. She now boasts 3 homeschool graduates who are successfully fulfilling their dreams and is excited to share with you her journey from reluctant homeschool mom to homeschooling advocate. Welcome, Jennifer. It is lovely to have you here. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for inviting me.
It is so awesome because as we are rolling into season 2, you're going to be about episode 5 or so into season 2 of our Bringing Education Home podcast. It is one of those things that we promised our audience this year is to bring more parents on who homeschooled or in the middle of homeschooling to give some inspiration to talk about what might be some of the ups and downs and just to really let people know that, this really can work. So that is so amazing that your bio said reluctant, not really wanting to, and then doing it. So thank you for being here.
Yeah, because another interesting thing that's going on right now is so many people want to homeschool, but they're really afraid of it. And it's like, oh, I want to homeschool. I want to get my kids out of the education system. But then when it comes time to actually do it, they don't. They back away from it. And it sounds like you weren't given that choice and were kind of forced into it and then found a joyful way to go through it. So we're hoping your story will help inspire more people to actually start properly educating their kids instead of leaving them in the public education system.
Maybe. Well, I want to thank you for providing this forum for people to come and listen and get different perspectives because you give so many different perspectives, which is good because we all come from a different angle.
So that's our first question. What was that reluctance? What was that thing that really kind of held you back besides what you said in your bio? And what was that catapult forward? What really flipped that switch for you? Let's start with that part of your story, please.
Okay. So my reluctance was growing up with cousins who were homeschooled and they didn't seem to know anything. I remember playing a game where we were, finding the states on a map and they couldn't find them. They knew it was number 12 in the game that they played, or they knew that, and where's Minnesota, which is where I lived at the time. And they were like, well, I think it's north. And they pointed at the North Pole. And they asked me if I lived in an igloo. And no, we live in houses just like you, but we have furnaces, which, where they lived, they didn't really have furnaces. So that was really disheartening. And I didn't see that they were educated. And, they all turned out fine, but I felt like their parents had just robbed them of certain socialization things and just of like general knowledge that I thought everyone just had. And so I really and all of the homeschool stuff that I saw were, kids wearing overalls and the mom matching a matching denim jumper. And I was like, that is not our family. So those were some of the reasons why I didn't want to homeschool. The biggest one, however, was that I did not think I was capable of homeschooling. I didn't enjoy teaching. I wasn't a natural teacher. I'm really bad at math and I kind of like it that way. I mean, all of those things made me think that I was probably incompetent to homeschool.
All of those things that we kind of talk about through this, realizing that you are more capable than you think, that you are more empowered than you think when it comes to your child's education. And then all those socialization things that we know now with the super involved parent, it's not really an issue, but I bet you're going to tell us more about that in your story.
Yeah, and actually, before we get a little farther, I actually want to thank those people that did that early homeschooling because they did pave the way. Mm-hmm. They did make the mistakes. They did start to figure out what worked and what didn't. And so what we have now as homeschooling options is so much more amazing than what they had when they first started, because and we call it education at home instead of homeschooling, because if you try and replicate the school system at home, you're going to kind of run into the same problems that you have in the public education system. So now we talk about more gearing it towards teaching children how to learn instead of what to learn. And then if they start following stuff that they love to do, then the learning just comes from every direction and it really broadens them out. So very thankful to the early homeschool people for having the weird kids and having the courage to do that, because we've evolved so much from that now, but we had to start somewhere. So
100%. And I see now that my perspective was so based on the fact that I was going to a public school. And so I just did not understand what was happening at all. And my idea of what was important as a 12-year-old and as a 16-year-old is much different than my idea of what's important as a parent.
Yeah, absolutely. So what was that catalyst? What sprung you and your children into homeschool? What was that turning point?
into the overalls and not knowing the map. What threw you over the fence into the world of the weird?
Yeah, a couple of things. My oldest was an amazing reader, and between the summer of kindergarten and first grade, he read Charlotte Webb, Stuart Little. He read all the thicker, bigger books, and he understood them. And when he went into first grade, his teacher tested him over and over and over again and wasn't very happy with where he was, and she put him in the lowest reading group. And so he was coming home with, a chicken that he colored that said hen, pen, men. And I said, "What? Why? What is this for?" And he said, "Well, this is for reading so that I can read things that rhyme." And I thought, this is not appropriate. So I went round and round with the teacher. Finally, she allowed the special ed teacher to test him rather than her. And he was reading at the 6th to 7th grade level.
Yep.
So then, then she was mad because she had to get extra books in her class, and he had to go out for special advanced reading education and all that stuff. And it really didn't go very well. And meanwhile, his sister was in private school because I was late to register her for it because I didn't know, or I didn't pay attention is probably more likely. And they were having shortages of space in the school. And so the district literally said to me, "We just need to ship your daughter over to this school for 1 year, and then she'll be back with her neighborhood." And that word ship really stuck with me because in my mind, you ship a box, you ship items, you don't ship people. I mean, I guess technically people do get on an airline, but they have a choice, right? So
And if you've ever watched a movie where they're called, when they're on an airplane, they're called souls. They're not called boxes. So
yes,
like with how many souls on board is
yes,
what they talk about.
right.
So
Not
it's
how many
completely
parcels.
different. They
It
don't
is.
ship people on airplanes either. It's or on boats. How many souls were on board?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yes. So I had started her in private school. And I was like, the district will never touch my daughter. And they haven't. So anyway, then moved my son over to private school as well. And I think after second grade, I did. He had a fabulous second grade teacher. I love her still. She was wonderful, but I couldn't do the two schools thing anymore. So I moved him over to private school. And that proved to not be a great experience really for either of my kids. They did not have, my daughter is very slightly dyslexic. And so she was having a tougher time reading. It wasn't that she couldn't read, it was that she couldn't read out loud. And I was like, "Oh, like me." Um, Same thing. So as she was going into second grade and he was going into fourth grade, I pulled them out of school. And that happened amongst other life situations that were going on. So it proved to be, I'd made the choice, and then it just was proved to me over and over again that that was the right thing to do. So I spent that summer reading everything I could because I was like, well, I want to give them an elite education is what I wanted. So I studied what is an education? What do the wealthiest parents, the top 5.5% of people in the world, what do they want for their kids? And I very quickly discovered it really matched what my heart wanted for my kids was the ability to have imagination, understand social structures, understand that whatever they wanted access to, they could network a way to get to that, and that the world was full of possibilities. Not that you moved with the same aged students the whole way through school and then you get dumped out into the world and wait, what? I'm an adult now? What does that mean?
Mhm.
So I read a lot of John Taylor Gatto and John Holt, and then a lot of other things as well. But that was kind of where I landed. However, I started with classical education, very regimented classical
Exactly.
education,
Exactly. Yeah.
because I wanted it well rounded.
Yeah. And I love that because you're talking, what I'm hearing you say is that you wanted to produce humans. You wanted to produce someone who could handle lots of different things and not necessarily just the book knowledge. You were hoping for that well-rounded, full-bodied person that we really propose here at Vibrant Family as well. It's like we want the holistic education, the whole child education. They have life skills and they have academic skills. They have
Yeah,
social skills and they have learning skills, all of that.
And it's so much more than just being able to look at a map and say that's Minnesota, that's Oregon, without having any
Yes.
sort of emotional attachment to it. It's
Yeah.
like, okay, so you know that, but do you know that? And
right,
so right. And so yeah, teaching facts instead of teaching how to learn.
right. And yeah, so that's what we did. Classical education, by the way, was a disaster for us. We could with 3 kids, one of which was 4 at the time. We did 8 subjects a day. It took us about 2 hours.
Yeah, that's kind of what we talk about. It's like people, that's why we don't call it homeschooling here. We call it education at home. Because if
Yeah,
you try and replicate school at home,
Mhm.
then you end up with the same problems that the public school has, because their kids aren't supposed to sit for 6 to 8 hours a day at a desk. That's not
Or even
normal.
2 hours at 4 years old.
2 hours of regimented stuff is just not how our brains work. That's plain
No.
and simple, and it really disturbs the learning process. So I just stopped schooling at that point,
Uh-huh.
and we took the rest of the year and just tried to figure life out with all of us at home,
I
which
love it.
And
led,
when when you're figuring life out, you're teaching cooking, you got the kids cleaning, you have them doing stuff, and it's
yeah,
amazing how much they learn
Mhm.
while they're doing that, but you're not teaching them.
so much more than you can ever imagine. It
Mhm.
just eventually we took that break, and it was a very good break, and we did learn how to live together. And I always think homeschooling is such a misnomer anyway. We were hardly ever home, and
Right.
school did not look like a school building at all. It looked like going for walks, going ice skating for hours on end, going sledding down the hill, meeting up with friends, doing fun stuff, going groceries, just living life, grocery shopping, and oh, we need new boots, so we'll go out and get new boots, and all of the things, opportunities to learn that come with that is
So
really
if we were to put it in today's terms, because of course you did this several years ago, because you said you've graduated your children,
yeah.
basically now it would have been called unschooling because you,
It yes,
yeah, because
and
you were just living life, not using curriculum. You were just unschooling, right? And the
right.
part that you said about when you just kind of like put the curriculum away and didn't really school anything and got used to life, what we call that now in modern terms is deschooling, because you want to get the public education out of your mind. And I'm iterating these for the people who are listening, who are curious, like, wait a second, I've heard these terms and I'm not quite sure what they are. Would you agree with what I said?
Yeah, 100%. And
But it also is not just abandoning your children. It's like, oh, we're out of school and you're over there and I'm doing our stuff. You were including them in your life. You were building into them the habits. You were building in the family structure. It sounds like you probably still had boundaries and things they could and couldn't do, so that your kids just weren't running feral. They were part of the family and being educated in life. So again, that's why we call it education at home, right?
Exactly.
Does that make more sense now?
Yeah, oh, it totally makes sense. And I hope that your listeners get that too. And yes, it is called deschooling. And we did that for probably almost a year because we went through the summer and into the next year.
Yeah.
And then I just started reading to them. That's kind of how we got back into a little bit of a routine because we just lived in chaos until that point. I did have one who was already in hockey, and then my daughter was doing horseback riding. So we had some activities we were going to, but other than that, it was just randomly. Whenever we woke up, we woke up. Whenever we went to bed, we went to bed, and whatever we did during the day. So I just began reading to them, and I read. Oh shoot, her last name is Bauer, but there's a very good set of history books that go from creation to ancient history, ancient to Roman Empire, and then Roman Empire into modern times. I can't think of who it is, what her name is, but her last name is Bauer. And we read those over and over and over again. And one of the things that I think is so funny is my daughter hated history. And so she would sit there on the couch like this. Literally, those of you who can't see me, she was literally sleeping with her mouth open.
She was checked out.
She doesn't do that anymore. I'm just gonna say she's an adult now. Anyway, much later when she was taking a college class on, I think it was world history, and she kept coming home and she's like, "Mom, how dumb are these kids? How do they not know this stuff?" And I said, "Well, how do you know this stuff?" She's like, "I don't know. I just know it."
She was picking it up while she was sleeping.
She was picking it up unconsciously. And so she aced every test.
Yeah, and again, in public education right now, they'll kind of go over that, but it's just once and they rush through it, and then you take a test and you don't have to think about it anymore, and then they rush to the next thing. So right now they're just rushing to tests, and the knowledge isn't sticking with most people.
Right. And how we teach history in public schools and even in college is disjointed. So we learn, state history in fourth grade, but we don't understand how that fits into the history of the United States. And we don't understand how the history of the United States began when, before white people came and after. We don't, it's so chunked up. There's a lot of misunderstanding or lack of understanding of how events unfolded.
Right.
And so
the out of the box me, because you missed our intro, but it used to be we're both inside and outside the box. That comes to the dumbing down of America. That comes to you can't control an educated population. So our education system has been under attack to give us just enough to know, but not enough to really be able to embrace and move this amazing experiment, which is the United States, forward in a productive manner. So yeah, that in homeschooling, you can actually get a hold of that and teach that and learn that and live that and love that. And as a homeschooler, that is what you're doing, because you're taking your sovereignty as a citizen of this experiment and being able to, it's the one place you have absolute control over your life is your children's education. But the schools won't let you know that.
No, and it's interesting that you bring that up because what you're talking about is, thinking you're educated, but realizing you're not. And that's exactly where I was when I thought that homeschooling was child abuse.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
And so even if you're like me, your eyes can be opened and you'll discover a whole amazing world and all of the gaps that were in your own education. And that didn't mean we weren't doing okay. We were doing fine,
Right. Yeah.
but we didn't realize the whole world we were missing.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
as you were going through some of these things, did you kind of take a tangent and go on a deeper dive on certain things when your kids kind of perked up, like, oh, what about that? Did you kind of like go deeper on some of those things, or how did you kind of morph this into them learning a little bit more?
Yeah, what was your next step after your year and a half of deschooling? How did you get back?
She said back to reading.
You started with reading, and then how did you get back into the actual education aspect of it?
Yeah, so we started reading and then we started going to the library. And I am convinced that the only thing you need to get a true education is the ability to read and a library card.
Mm-hmm.
So I let my kids check out whatever books they wanted. If it was something that could be kind of sketchy, we read it together so that we could discuss it along the way.
Yeah.
I don't remember anything like that, but I always watched what they were reading. When my oldest read Dracula in the 5th grade, we had some conversations about it.
Yeah.
Because that can cause nightmares. But we did that. My youngest, who was probably 6 or 7 at the time, gravitated to the great courses. So he would watch the DVDs and read along in the book, and then he would teach me. So I learned about all kinds of things, including Roman luxury latrines. So if you ever want to know about those, I can help you out.
Again, and then we go back to vibrant family education. That's a little hidden gem in what we do, is because as you start educating your children at home, you're educating the whole family. It becomes not about the children anymore. It becomes about creating a cohesive family, and everybody's learning, because our education was flawed. There's a lot of gaps in what we know. And as you're teaching your children, it's like you those fill in those gaps, and suddenly your mind goes, oh wow, now this and this and this.
It all
and
makes
then
sense.
And then this other gap gets filled in, and wow, this and this and this, and it's like your whole worldview. So even as an adult, it's like we talk about educating the children, but it's amazing what happens with the adults. It's just like your child was teaching you. How amazing is that?
Right, it is. And what I discovered very quickly, which I always just said I had an eclectic form of education, because I got razzed a lot by some people, but because I was homeschooling, and also because even my homeschool friends thought that I was really free range. And so I would just explain, we have an eclectic style, so we kind of do different, we thread a lot of things together. In reality, I was unschooling, and I created an environment where they could delve in as far as they wanted into any subject. And that's what they did. And, my oldest, for a long time, I would say, well, what do you want to do when you grow up? And he said, play hockey. Okay, that's
Hockey
great.
player, that's it.
What about when you're finished playing hockey? Well, I'll just play more hockey. And I said, well, you can do that if or when you make it to the NHL. Usually players are finished by the time they're 40. What do you think you might want to do for the rest of your life?
Coach hockey.
Coach hockey, right?
I know you would think, but then it was, I think I want to push carts at Target. If you can't tell, he was a very physical kid.
Yes.
And before we would even read books, I would send him out we lived in a cul-de-sac, to run around the cul-de-sac until he was out of breath. And then he'd come in with still too much energy, and I'd send him out again. Sometimes he would go skating at noon and he wouldn't come back until 6 or 7, and call him in. That was how he was. And so it made sense he would want to do something physical. And so while we read books, I still have a Basu ball here. He would bounce around the house on this big old ball.
Big yoga balls. That's what she's showing us. Yep.
Big purple ball, or the big white ball we used to have. It popped. But he would bounce around the house and listen. And again, he learned, and he knew he needed the kinetic movement.
Could you imagine him sitting at a desk in a classroom for 6 hours a day while they crammed facts at him? He would have always been in trouble. They would have had him on Ritalin and other drugs because your bad kid can't pay attention. It's like,
And the best part about it is that you're bringing up exactly some of the things that we talk about with parents. Is like, as long as the child is learning, it doesn't really matter where they are. They can be in the middle of the living room floor. They could be sitting in a chair. They could be hanging upside down off the back of the couch if that's really how they learned. But let them kind of learn. You let them use their learning style, unless it's a specific task. If you're teaching handwriting, yes, they need to sit in a chair. If they're having a guest speaker, yes, they need to sit down and pay attention and be polite. Specific instances, but otherwise let them learn how they learn best. Now a few words about vibrant family education.
How many entrepreneurs and business owners start out on this journey to make a better life for their family, only to find that it took so much more time and effort than they were expecting that they had even less time for their family? I know I did.
At Vibrant Family Education, we want to help you reach your family goals while you're still building towards your business goals. We do this by bringing you the third leg of the stool to keep your family upright: family education development.
By bringing your children's education home, you will be able to model your work ethic and family values as you overcome obstacles and challenges to build your business. Instead of learning facts to pass tests, your children can be watching and seeing the dedication it takes to build your business and the legacy you want to create for their future. They will be able to witness the struggles and joys, the wins and the losses, and learn from you how to persevere and grow in life.
Instead of waiting until you get successful to spend more time with your family, start with the end goal in mind and bring your family home. Instead of trying to repair your family after you reach success, let us help you start achieving your family goals from the outset. Learn to be successful with your family now, and no matter what happens in the future, they will be better prepared for life, especially after watching how you cared for and built not only a business, but a healthy, happy, and successful family.
We offer a wide range of educational services, including how to easily get started with homeschooling. Come visit us at vibrantfamilyeducation.com and let us show you how. And now, back to our guest. If I'm doing video learning and it's not alive, I will be playing solitaire. I will be doing something and not looking and getting all of the information, because if I'm sitting and looking and trying to pay attention, then I start drifting off in my head and I lose more of it. But if I'm doing something, not thinking, but solitaire, whatever, it's like, but then it's like I'm just getting all of this information and absorbing it, and then I'll come back and I'll ask questions. I'll be there, but I can't like focus straight on it because it's like my body doesn't allow me to just sit there. But having a conversation is completely different. So
agreed. And that's why even my daughter sleeping with her mouth open was learning.
Yeah, absorbing that history.
Yeah, so those were good things. So, and my youngest had his own style of learning too. Which has varied a lot. Either he was very still and very intent, or he was building with Legos or something. So he would switch between the two.
That actually brings me to a question that I would thought of. It's like, so when you first started, were you teaching out of kind of like your comfort, your learning style? And then later you kind of switched to maybe their comfort and their learning style? Or what? How would you talk about that?
I was trying to hit all of the learning styles, and I was following curriculum because, like I said, I was so afraid I was going to get it wrong. So we had Latin curriculum and math curriculum and history curriculum and music curriculum, and they were taking piano lessons. And I mean, like I said, it was 8 subjects a day, and it didn't take them long to get the work done. And it wasn't until I relaxed and just started reading to them, which is really how this all came about, was reading to them books. Because I believe that spiritual development is important. We read the Children's Story Bible, and I think we went through the entire thing in less than a month. So we just reread it over and over again. We had that history. We read that the whole way through school. Science. We would just read about various creatures or habitats or physics. My kid's favorite bedtime book was the Home Depot home repair book.
Say that again.
The Home Depot home repair book.
Sure.
You could learn how to tile and repair sheetrock and fix plumbing.
Okay, are any of them in construction now?
The book version of This Old House. Those shows are amazing. I love those shows. Is it because it was creative and fixing, and yeah, those were amazing shows.
Yeah.
We did not. None of them are in construction. My oldest son in ninth grade retiled our bathroom, though,
Yeah.
which he did a beautiful job.
Uh-huh.
And they all are very understanding of what it will take to repair or fix or maintain something. So that's good.
I
But
call
it's
that
like,
general competence. So
yeah,
that just general competence in life to knowing what this is about.
Mhm.
It used to be called like common sense, but it's so uncommon now. So that just general competence is such a
Yeah.
beautiful, wonderful skill for a child to have.
it is. It
Yeah.
is. It was really cool to watch them do that.
So do me a favor and move forward a little bit to those high school years, because we have a lot of families like, oh, well, I can probably take care of the younger grades because, teaching reading, teaching basic math, etc. But what about those middle school and high school years whenever things get so much harder? What kind of happened with your kids?
So because we were already fully on the unschooling thing, I did kind of keep track of what they were thinking they wanted to do when they, went out and got a job.
Mhm.
Just for the record, I was always encouraging them to open a business.
Yeah.
Not one of them ever opened a business.
Okay.
Still not. And that's okay.
Okay.
That being said, middle school was pretty easy
Mhm.
because we were just kind of humming along.
Yeah.
My middleist is what I like to call her, but my daughter started to really get on to me. I don't know geography. And I was like, what do you mean you don't know geography?
Right.
And she would say, well, I don't know. I don't know. She didn't know what she didn't know. But what was happening was that her friends who were in school were complaining about their geography homework, or were
Uh-huh.
complaining about
Okay.
this, complaining about that. And one of the things that I did was I had foreign students, we hosted foreign students from time to time. Now,
Mhm.
all of them happened to be from France,
Okay.
but they got to learn about a different culture because we couldn't afford to take all five of us over to France to learn the culture. So we brought a little bit of the culture to us.
Oh, I love that. That's a great idea.
It was wonderful. And so so I started asking her questions. I said, well, tell me what you know about France. And she told me about France. And I said, tell me what you know about Sweden and Norway. Her dad is Swedish and Norwegian, and I have some Swede in me. And so she
Yeah.
tells me about that. And I said, now tell me what you know about Spain. And she tells me about that. And I said, tell me what you know about Africa, right? The whole continent. Well, she
Yeah.
has an uncle who's from Cameroon. She lets me know about Cameroon. I said, do you know where South Africa is, or do you know any of that history? Yep, she knew some of that.
Yeah.
Tell me about Asia. Tell me about China or India. Do the Chinese and Japanese, do they really like each other? No. Why she knew it. She just didn't know she knew it. Yeah.
Mhm.
So that was fine. And then they started needing a little more help with math than I could give. They could all tell I wasn't very good at it. And so we joined a co-op where they offered classes, and they all took some math classes. My youngest also took a lot of science classes because he
Yeah.
was very interested in science, and then some general writing classes. And that was 1 to 2 days a week for maybe 2 hours a day, sometimes more, depending on what classes they wanted to take.
Right.
And then the rest of the week they were home doing what they did, and they had some homework to work with. And then the last 2 years of high school, in our state, we have post-secondary education option. So they can take college courses for high school.
Yes.
So those last 2 years, that's what each of them did. They started taking college
There we
classes.
go. Mhm.
And I'm glad that we did it that way. I had one that ended his first semester of college with an A,
Mhm.
a B, a D, and an F.
Okay.
And I said he tried to hide them from all of that stuff.
All
So
of that stuff.
all of that stuff. And what I want to say is, you want your kids to fail when they're still at home,
Mhm.
because through that we got to say, hey, here's the deal. We're here to help and support you. We're
Mhm.
not going to do the work for you. And when you're running into stuff, come talk to us. Your dad and I have both been through college. We know how this works.
Right.
And so that opened up the conversation for us to move along. That child it does very well in school. In fact, all three of my children have done very well in college to date.
Yeah.
So, um, but we did that with all three of them. My other one, my middleest, I will always I have learned so much from this child. She should have been the parent. Um, and I credit her with that. But she always did great. In fact, she would register herself. She would fill out the paperwork and say, "Here, mom, I need you to sign this." She would sign up for her classes. She
Yep.
figures out stuff for her brothers when they're like, "Well, I don't know when to take what classes." She's like, "Sit down," and she figures it all out. So
That's awesome.
so now they know when they're in trouble, not when they're in trouble, but when they can't figure it out, ask someone, and they usually start with their sister. So that has been good, and that was a good stair step from unschooling to, I want to say, more accountability. It really wasn't more accountability, but it was a more stringent method
Right.
of
It was
accountability.
formalized schooling, formalized education. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, but they still got to choose mostly what they were taking, so
Right.
that worked, and then it was a pretty smooth process then into college at that point, which I didn't want any of my kids to go to college. I wanted them to just go start businesses.
Right.
I
But that's one of the other things that we talked about. By the time they're done homeschooling education at home, they really probably have a good sense of what they want to do and where they want to go because they've had those chances to explore. They've had those chances to try things out. They've had those chances to say, oh, maybe I want to start a business. Maybe I don't. Maybe I want to learn more about this. Maybe I don't. So that's one of the other beautiful things about this process with
yeah,
the children and people in general.
Yeah, and
yeah,
kind of we get people out of the unschooling a little quicker and getting
mhm,
them moving more in specific directions. So not back into the school way, but in helping them focus and figuring out what they want to do in goal setting, in creating a plan.
Right.
And so we actually focus a little bit more on that as well. So it's not just kind of, oh, whatever. It's whatever for a while until you get into the habit. And then once you start learning how to learn, it's like, okay, now let's focus in here and look at what else we can do and how to expand that. So
right.
we rein it in a little bit earlier than college, or we try and help
Yeah.
parents get there a little easier.
Yeah. Well, and I call it the slow release too, right? When we started deschooling, I was with them almost 100% of the time, minus hockey practice and
Right.
horseback riding lessons, right?
Mhm.
Other than that, I was with them. And then as they grew, middle school, they got a little more freedom. High
Mhm.
school, they got a little more freedom. Learning to drive, they got a lot more freedom because I totally trusted them at that point. So the question, it stopped being, "Mom, when do I need to be home by?" And it became me asking, "Are you going to be home for dinner tonight?"
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Our rule was, it's like, if you're traveling, you let us know where you're traveling. It's like, I don't care where you're going. I don't, but if you say you're going to be there, I want you to be there. And then if you're
right,
going there, I want to know when you're going there, not because I'm trying to keep track of you, but in case something goes wrong, I want to know where to go find your body.
right,
And so it's like, and I would say that it's like, look, you have the
You've earned the
freedom,
trust. You've
you
got the
have the
freedom.
freedom, you have the trust. I just want to know where to go look for you if something goes wrong.
right,
And
right.
I was very clear about that. It's like, it's your life. You have this freedom.
Yeah,
I just have to be able to go pick up the pieces.
right. We also gave our kids a way out. So if they were ever out somewhere and things started happening that they were like, "Oh, this isn't good,"
Mhm.
all they had to do was call us and say, "I forgot to feed the fish," and we would come get them.
Nice. Yep.
And they could totally blame, "My mom and dad are so bad." I mean, whatever they wanted to say, we didn't care. We
Yeah.
were there out. And it never happened.
Mhm.
And yeah, the question I asked was, "What time will you be home for dinner? And if not, what time will you be home?"
Yeah.
Because, and I explained it to him. I said, "Look, I do want to go to bed. and I don't want to wait up all night for you to come home. And
Mhm.
sometimes they'd be call and say, I'll be home at 3 in the morning. And then I might ask a few more questions because
Right.
there's not a lot of good stuff that goes on after, 11 or 12. So,
And as a good parent with expectations and boundaries to help keep them safe, those are positive, good questions. It's like a
yeah,
little check-in. Is like, are you sure you're making a good choice here?
Yeah, my,
right,
my second big safety rule was when you're traveling, when you're in a car, when you guys are going places, do not screw around. Okay.
right,
The
right.
car is not the place
To goof
to be
around.
goofing around and having fun. It's like,
Yeah.
because if you do something and you cause an accident that hurts my kid, I'm going to come find you and kill you if you live through it. So
We're
my
talking
friend,
to teenage
Like a
so
boys
father.
here.
we were actually the cool parents of our
We
group,
were.
so of my son's group. So it's like they knew that it was only kind of serious.
Yeah.
So whenever they were traveling, it's like when you get there, you can be as stupid as you want,
As silly as you
but
want. Yep.
do not do stupid stuff in the car. And
Right.
so that
Right.
was my second rule. Is like, let me know when you're moving. Don't do stupid stuff in a car.
Yeah. Yeah. That's fabulous.
All right, so give us an update now. Where are your kiddos now? Because you said that you've, kind of accomplished this big feat of hating homeschooling, not wanting to do it, jumping in there, moving through it, and now feeling mostly accomplished. Where are
And
you at?
also add how awesome it is that your children are still talking to you, and how many parents don't necessarily have that right now. So let's wrap all of that kind of in the same kind of a thing.
Sure. My kids love to talk to me. And they come to me for advice, which is always a tricky place as a parent. So,
Mhm.
good thing I have some training in being a coach because I know just to ask them questions, they already know the answers. They just want to hear that that's okay.
Yeah.
But they do. They still come to me. I have two that are still living at home. So we'll
Mhm.
start with my oldest. My oldest, I ended up, he's one of those kids that didn't know what he wanted to do, and it took him a while to figure it out. He's going to nursing school right now. He enlisted in the Army National Guard first,
Mhm.
got deployed in that way, figured out that he wanted to be a nurse, came back home, bought a house in the town he's going to school in, rents half of it out,
Mhm.
genius, and is
Mhm.
going to school.
I thought you said they weren't into businesses.
He doesn't look at it as a business, and that's okay. He
Love
looks
it.
at it as a way to help pay his mortgage. So, anyway, so he's going to nursing school. He'll be finished in roughly a year. So
Mhm.
that's pretty exciting. He's excited about what he's doing, and
Nice.
he'll be an ER nurse, which fits his,
Personality,
I want
activity
to say,
level.
lust for excitement and
Yep.
action and adrenaline, which is a good way to do that. Then my middleest is a pilot. She graduated with a double major in aviation science and something else. I don't remember what the second was, and a double minor. Like I said, they've all done very well at school. She was, I think, magna cum laude or something. I don't see. I
Nice.
don't know these things. I wasn't that smart. Um, anyway, she graduated about just over a year ago. So a year ago last spring. She's been getting her hours, and she leaves at the end of December to go to her dream job and get trained to fly jets. So that's pretty
There you
exciting.
go.
Yeah. And she's also my one who at 13 procured 3 horses and continued to teach me. So that's where my horsemanship comes from, is her.
Beautiful.
My youngest is going to the University of Minnesota right now. He's majoring in mechanical engineering, loves it, which we all think is very funny because he was the one who would throw fits when I tried to teach him about math early on.
Mm-hmm.
And then he didn't even really want to learn that stuff in high school, but now he's learning it, and it just comes. I'm not saying he doesn't struggle with some things, but it really has come very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And so my bottom line with it is get to know your kids,
Yep.
build relationships with them, allow them to socialize,
Mm-hmm.
right? Don't sequester them away.
Yep.
And your kids will be the ones that their coaches and whatever will be. You have such great kids. They even talk to adults.
Yep.
Yes, they can talk to the whole spectrum. And they don't lose that. And they don't lose that joy of learning.
Yeah, there was one thing you said in there at the beginning of that, and you just kind of, it was almost a throwaway. It's like it wasn't all that important, but you said he picked it up quickly. And that's one of the big, huge differences between the formal public education right now, is when kids run into a problem, they're skipped over, they're left behind, there's gaps in their education, and they don't know how to learn. They just try and
Wing
pick
it.
up the next bits and go. But when you teach your children how to learn and they have a love of it, then when they do find what they want, when they do get, it's like, oh, I want to go do that.
And if they struggle,
it's
persevere.
not, oh, I'm struggling, there's a gap, I'm going to get left behind. It's like, okay, I know how to work through this. So teaching your children how to learn and not forcing it on it, then when they're ready, it's like, oh, I know how to get this, I know how to bring this in. And that was so important, and you just kind of just like threw that in there like it was nothing. And it's like, no, that's the key. That is one of the cornerstones. And it's like reading and learning how to learn are the two biggest things, because you learn how to learn and you read,
so you can gather information.
it opens up the world. So I mean, you started with reading to your kids and teaching them how to learn, and you just like letting those go. It's like, that is so important. Congratulations, well done. Woo!
And I want to say your kids already know how to learn. They may have forgotten by being in public school or in private school. They may have forgotten. But when you open things up to them to explore what they're interested in, they relearn. And you can't force anything. And I think we do a lot of forcing because we think this age they should be learning this. Not necessarily. And they may never need that information. There are tons of things I learned in school that I still don't need.
Go ahead.
Right.
I still don't need them. And the academics, really, that's the easy stuff.
Yeah.
The hard
So-
stuff
The
is
human
managing
stuff.
yourself.
Yeah, we've kind of talked with people who've started homeschooling their children at all different ages.
Yeah.
And there's one common thread on all of it, and it's, I wish I had started it sooner. So
Me too.
it's never too late. If they're already in high school, you can still get that in, because the sooner they start learning how to learn
Loving to learn.
and
Yep.
loving it, the better. So if because it's like in high school, they're still not feeling safe. There's still gaps. There's still things they're missing. So even if they're in high school, you can pull them out and get that in there so that they can start building that back. If they're in middle school, great. Never send them to school in the first place. Woohoo! So it's like it's never too late to start, and the only regret you will have is that you didn't do it sooner.
Agreed.
So
Agreed.
now that you're so accomplished, you have all this extra time because you're not helping your kids learn. What do you do now?
I am now a coach. I label myself as a transformational life coach.
Okay.
And basically, anywhere in life you feel stuck, or you find that you're sabotaging yourself, or you just don't know why things don't work out for you, but they seem to work out for anyone else around you, I get to help you with that. And when I say help, really, you have all the answers yourself. I just get to start asking you questions and talk with your unconscious mind so that your conscious mind becomes aware of it. And then we get them aligned. And then the sky's the limit. Well, it really isn't even the limit.
Yeah.
There is no limit.
There is no limit. You can keep going. That's awesome. So you've taken your homeschool journey, helping your children now, into helping other people with their journeys. And I think that's a great compliment. It's a great transition for you as someone who is so invested in your children. And now you get to take time for you, but you also still get to invest in others as you wish. That is amazing. I love it.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. So do us a favor, just in case someone's looking, which they probably are, they're here because they're learners, they want to know more. How do they get a hold of you? If there's something you've said resonates with them, how do they get a hold of you to be possible their transformation coach?
So the best way to get a hold of me would probably be to reach out on Facebook.
Okay.
And I'm doing better at checking Messenger now. Haven't always. But that would be a great way. Otherwise, I will be there. I will have a link with a freebie, and that would be a really good way to get a hold of me as well. So what you'll get is a wheel of life. So you can just evaluate what areas of your life are really working and which ones aren't. And if you're starting out like me, you might have a little tiny wheel that's really bumpy. And that's okay. So, or you might have a big perfect wheel, in which case, go you, keep going. So, yeah.
Excellent. Yeah, and absolutely. All of this information that Jennifer was just talking about will be down in the show notes. So you'll be able to click on those links or something, or find her on Facebook. If you're watching on YouTube, her name is right there in the corner, Jennifer Edlund. So you'll be able to type that in and find her on Facebook, etc. So thank you so much for sharing with us today.
Yeah, that's one of the fun things about transformational coaches is it's not about giving you the answer, because if they give you the answer and it's wrong, then you get to blame them. But the trick is to find the right question, and they're good at asking questions. And so the right question can spark in your mind to go looking for that answer and find it within yourself, because you do have the answers. And it sounds like Jennifer is really good at that. So, and it's because of the way she's done, she just flows into life so well. So thank you for being here. It was been a pleasure talking with you.
Well, thank you. It was great talking with you too. And thanks again for inviting me to talk with you.
You are very, very welcome. And thank you for dropping all these wonderful little gold nuggets. So as my audience is probably getting tired of hearing me say, find those gold nuggets, pick them up and take them with you, put them in your pocket, take them with you, but don't leave them in your pocket. Pull them out and use them when you need them, or go find the resources, go find more gold nuggets from other people to help you and your family grow and develop, so we can have happy, healthy, and successful kids.
Yep. And again, thank you for being here. It was a wonderful conversation. You touched on so many of the things on why we do what we do, and to try and get parents to see these so that they can take control of their children's education, so that they can grow a stronger family, so that they can take the children out of the system and become a family again and grow as a family. And again, the hidden joys of education, even I learned so much from my daughter, is just an amazing thing to hear from your middleist. And so thank you for being here. It has been an absolute pleasure to talk with you today.
Thank you.
All right, audience, that is it for today. We are heading off to find some more adventures. Thank you, Jennifer, for being here. Thank you, audience, for listening. Please do us a huge favor and make sure you like and review our podcast so it can reach other people as well. And don't forget to visit vibrantfamilyeducation.com. That's where you'll find out more information about us as well, so that we can help you, or you can help others do the best you can for your children. All right, everybody. Bye for now.
Bye for now. Hello, and welcome to Bringing Education Home. I'm Herb.
And I'm Christina. And together we bring you experts